Hey guys, what's up? And this is the first video of my series building my dream gaming PC. This video is going to be about the parts I'm putting in the PC. I've been wanting this PC to use for editing and gaming, and also that I would also be able to upload more often. The website I'm using for this build is called PC Part Picker. Link to the website will be in the description. But before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It's free and it's what keeps this channel alive. And with that, let's get into the video. Now let's move on to the first part of my PC, the CPU. The CPU, also known as the central processing unit, is the brains of the computer, and it basically tells all the other components what to do. Why I chose this CPU right here. This is the AMD Ryzen, and there are two brands of CPUs. There's Ryzen, which is the one I have, and then there's also Intel. And in my opinion, and based on all the research I've done, Ryzen has shown to have a lot better performance than Intel. But my biggest competitor for Ryzen, my biggest competitor to the Ryzen is this CPU right here, the Intel Core i7 1200 700K. So this is my biggest competitor to my CPU. But in the end, I chose Ryzen because it's better for gaming and all the things that I will be using for. Now, the next thing that's on my list is the CPU cooler. So, the CPU cooler basically makes sure that the CPU stays cool and that it doesn't overheat. Because when a CPU runs, it heats up because of all the load that it's holding, because it's the brain of the computer. And the CPU, and yeah, so why I chose this CPU cooler. So my CPU, the Ryzen 7 5800X, it tends to get pretty hot, and this is a cooler. This is a AIO, and I will go into what that means in a little bit. But this cooler also looks really nice. As you can see, it has the light RGB right here, and that's another reason why I got this cooler. So different types of coolers. So the one I chose is a AIO. AIO stands for all in one. And there are 3 different types of coolers, so this is just one of them. The second type of cooler is an air cooler, which cools the CPU with air, blasts air straight into the CPU. The third type of cooling is water cooling, which uses liquid cooling, which uses liquid to cool down the CPU. But in the end, I chose AIO because it looks cooler, and I need it because of how hot my PC gets. And also, water cooling is really expensive, and it also has chances for leaking. And yeah, that's basically the CPU cooler. Now, right here we have the thermal paste, and thermal paste is basically what you put it on your CPU so that your cooler can evenly spread out the cooling, and so that all the areas get cooled nice and evenly, so that your CPU doesn't overheat in areas. Now we're at the motherboard, and the motherboard is another really important part of the PC because it's where you put all your parts of the PC, and it's where it has all your parts. So if your motherboard is damaged, that means your PC pretty much cannot work. So I have chose this motherboard right here. the Asus ROG Strix B550 Gaming Wi-Fi 2 ATX AM4 motherboard. So, why I chose a Wi-Fi motherboard? So, I chose a Wi-Fi motherboard so that I wouldn't have to separately buy a Wi-Fi antenna so that my motherboard could have Wi-Fi and a PC could actually use, connect to a Wi-Fi network. Because if you don't buy a Wi-Fi motherboard, then, you can't connect to any Wi-Fi network. And here you see it says AM4. AM4 is a type of CPU slot. So, Ryzen's fit into a AM4 slot. Intel's fit into a different type of motherboard slot. So, Intel's fit into a different motherboard slot. And Wi-Fi, and then ATX. ATX is the size of the motherboard. So there's micro ATX, ATX, and there's also mega ATX, I think it's what it's called. It's a really big motherboard for how big it depends on how big your case is and what you want to fit inside your case, right? And my biggest competitor to this motherboard right here was this motherboard right here, the Gigabyte B550 Aorus Elite AX V2 AMD Ryzen ATX motherboard. So this is my biggest competitor, but the main reason why I picked this motherboard right here because it was only $10 more, but it also came with Wi-Fi, and why I really needed Wi-Fi. And yeah, that's basically the motherboard. Next up here we have the RAM. And the RAM also stands for random access memory. And this is used mostly in gaming and also for transporting downloads and stuff like that. So, for my RAM, I have the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro 32 gigabytes, and it comes in two 16 gig sticks, and it's DDR4 CL18 memory. So, I chose 32 gigs. I chose 32 gigs because it'll last me for a long time, and also for gaming, you need a pretty high amount of RAM so that you can, run all these games and things stuff like that. Also, my biggest competitor to this was two 8 gig sticks of RAM from the same brand, Corsair, and it was just a 16 gigabyte kit. But then I realized that probably need a lot more for gaming and stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much the RAM. Next up, we have the storage. So the storage is for storing all your downloads, like your apps, your recordings, your games, all that stuff. And the storage will store all of that. And for my storage, I have 2 terabytes of Crucial P3 SSDs. So there's two types of storage. We have what I have here, NVMe SSDs, which is the more popular and faster storage. And we also have hard drives. So this is a solid state drive, but another way of storage is a hard drive. But since hard drives are mechanical, they tend to break and they don't last for very long. So why I chose 2 terabytes? So I chose 2 terabytes so that if one terabyte of one of my first SSD will it break or something, at least I'd have a second SSD to keep all of my things and all my important information in case I lost it or lose it or something like that. And my biggest competitor was same as my RAM. It was 1 terabyte, but then I realized if something goes wrong with my computer and something breaks, then I won't have anything to save all my information on. And yeah, that's why I chose. That's basically my memory. Next up, we have the graphics card. So the graphics card is what runs all the graphics, display, stuff like that on your PC, and lets you display and play games and stuff like that, so that you can actually see it on your PC. And so for my graphics card, this is the GeForce RTX 3070 LHR 8GB video card, and and I chose this graphics card because it's really good for gaming, and it'll help me in editing because it'll make sure my graphics don't randomly glitch or stuff like that. And my biggest competitor for this graphics card was this graphics card right here, the RTX 3060 from MSI. But I realized that for gaming and stuff like that, it's good to invest on a graphics card that will also last me for a long time. So in the end, I chose the 3070. And there's one more brand of graphics card, and it's called Radeon Graphics, and that is made by AMD. So yeah, there's AMD's brand of graphics, and I don't really like AMD's brand because I just prefer Nvidia, because I like their software more and their their database more, and yeah, I personally it's mostly a personal choice, but that's why I chose Nvidia. Next up, we have the case, and the case is basically what holds all the parts in one place, so that you can put them in one place and you don't have to have random parts just sitting everywhere for no reason. And yeah, that was it. The case is pretty self-explanatory, but yeah. Now, as you can see over here, we have the power supply, and the power supply is basically what powers the entire unit, and what actually powers all the parts and helps them go. So I choose this Corsair power supply, and the really cool thing about the website I'm using, PC Part Picker, is that it tells you how much wattage your PC uses. For right here, I have 484 watts, and you want to go around 100 watts to 200 watts higher than that, because in case you upgrade your PC or things change. So you want to go around that much higher. So that's why I chose this 750 watt power supply. And yeah. Now over here we have the software, and the software is basically it's basically the thing like Windows. Windows is software, and the software is what connects all the hardware parts so that they can actually do something for you. And if you don't have the right software, then your PC is pretty much useless, because there's no point of actually using all your hardware. So for the software, I have the Microsoft Windows 11 Home. It's basically just Windows 11, 64-bit, and that's pretty much the software. It's a lot more, it's pretty simple, yeah. Now, finally, here we have the cooling fans. So the cooling fans are basically there to blast air into your PC, so that your PC can stay nice and cool, and it's cool stuff that don't have specific coolers. For example, the graphics card. Because the graphics card doesn't have a cooler, and also the other parts like the storage and stuff like that, because those also need to stay cool because they heat up quite a bit when you're using your PC. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire PC build. And over here we have the final price, $1,700 pretty much. But I promise you, if you save up this amount of money, then this PC will last you for a long time, and you won't have to upgrade it for a while, and it's a really good PC. See ya. Please like and subscribe. Do it for him.